Hello, and welcome to the next tour with
Ian?
and Andia. We are here with episode 22, Transition and Higher Education with Ryan Pavel. And I won't say the rest of that.
People that know me know the mnemonic that goes with that. So
That's
yeah,
right. So we're just gonna let them finish that inside their heads.
So welcome Ryan's friends. You're gonna know
there you
what we're
go.
talking about.
That's right.
Yeah.
So welcome, Ryan. We're super happy to have you here today. Ryan served 5 years in the Marine Corps as an Arabic linguist, which I feel like is really highfalutin for the Marine Corps, but well, we'll
Listen,
just leave that there.
Now that's you're just gonna toss that in and leave it there.
Yeah.
You're just gonna try and move on,
Just
not
leave
give
it
me a
there.
chance. Okay, I see how this is. I thought this was a kind podcast, but adversarial. Let's go.
Frank out, bro.
This is how we
Yeah.
are.
Let's go.
So let's see. You transitioned in August of 2010, and you are currently the CEO of Warrior Scholar Project. And we're going to share a lot of ways to get in touch and find Warrior Scholar Project in our show notes. But Ryan, even though it's already clear we're going to have a lot of fun today, I do want to welcome you and say thanks for being here with us. And we're so excited.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here. It was fun hearing a little bit around what you all have been doing with the podcast so far. And I should say the way that I found out about this was an introduction through the one and only Ross Dickman. And, like if Ross was on here, right, then you know what? All right, then I want to be like Ross when I grow up. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. And you're absolutely right. I think we all want to be like Ross when we grow up. And, I'm still trying to grow up myself. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of jump right in and get to our first question for you. So Warrior Scholar Project has a very specific mission, and it makes it stand out kind of in the sea of veteran service organizations and those kinds of things. Can you tell us a little bit about what you guys do, why you do it the way you do, who specifically it serves? Because I think this is a really, really incredible aspect. And might I say, just to kind of not give it away, but underscore very quickly that as you give this answer, there's a really neat kind of thing that I love about what the United States Armed Forces do. We professionalize our enlisted corps, and that's what makes us the best in the world. So, okay, kind of with that little foreshadowing, Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I think that there is something that is unique about what we do. I'm very confident in that. I've been doing Warrior Scholar Project in one form or another since 2013. I've been full-time since 2018. We've served close to 3,000 enlisted service members and veterans through our programming, which I'll talk about here. And there's nothing like what we do. And there's something about the transformation that can happen. You take a bunch of enlisted veterans and you put them in a rigorous, authentic, well-structured environment on a college campus, and you say, this is going to be really tough, but you're going to come out the other end much more confident, and not just in your academic skills, but also in your ability to build community, right? To do that deep identity work and to figure out how to build community inside and outside the veteran space. I'm extremely fortunate to say that there is literally no job in the world that I would rather have than this one. And I also tell people that it's not as if I had a 10, 15-year plan when I got out of the Marine Corps in 2010 that this is where I wanted to be. So a lot of my story is about following the thread and saying yes when the right opportunity comes along, and being willing to go into something with a plan, but also knowing that you're going to learn a lot along the way. So Warrior Scholar Project, national 501c3, founded in 2012. As I mentioned, I got involved in 2013. The core programming that we offer is a series of academic boot camps where we are taking enlisted service members or veterans. So you can be active duty, reserve, guard, separated veteran, as long as you're enlisted. Officers, I love you, but you got plenty of support in higher ed, right? You're fine, right? You can go find your own path. We're focused on the enlisted side for this. And we are helping them by bringing them to a college or university, an excellent top-tier institution throughout the country, to help them understand what that is actually like, not necessarily for them to pursue their degree at that program, but if we work at Yale, at UChicago, at Michigan State, right, at these institutions, at UVA, the idea is these institutions, you absolutely have what it takes. It doesn't matter if you're like me, like Ryan, that enlisted at 17 because he didn't get accepted to University of Illinois, which is where he wanted to go, right? It doesn't matter. Maybe you thought you lost your chance. No, you have what it takes. We're going to guide you through this 1 week, which which is about 75 to 80 hours of work per week. You're reading Alexis de Tocqueville in humanities. You're doing Newtonian physics if you're doing it in the STEM side. You're doing marketing and ops if you're on the business side. But it is academic, rigorous, intensive, and you come out the other end and they are ready to take on the world, and they believe in themselves and what they have. They know that they have what it takes to succeed in higher education. It's super fun.
No kidding.
Wow.
That is brilliant. And you know what, as an officer, uh, I will tell you that I think this is an incredible thing that you all are doing. Um, so often, and I know you've run into it, when you were in uniform, I'm sure you see it now. There's a confidence level thing sometimes, and a self-worth thing that comes with, having education and having that, ability to say, you know what, yeah, I have this incredible skill set and I know how to teamwork. I know how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And these boot camps are just, it just kind of blows my mind that nobody thought of this before you guys did. And I got to say, hats off to you. I think this is a brilliant thing that you all are bringing to the forefront, and we're happy to help spread this word.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is something about the concept of it which is obvious, but also there's a lot of things in the transition space that are, I think, they make sense, but the execution is really what makes the difference. And so the origin of Warrior Scala Project was three enterprising Yale undergrads. Actually, none of them are U.S. military veterans. So oddly enough, one was an Australian Special Forces veteran. I always tell people, right, we talked about this a little bit before we recorded here. If you want to hear somebody swear, you've never heard somebody swear until you've spent time with an Australian Special Forces veteran who just came back from a decade of kicking down doors. Like, my goodness. So that was one of the founders. He was part of the Eli Whitney program at Yale, which is for non-traditional students. Then he met up with another guy, Jesse Rising, who was an officer candidate school before he had this tragic industry. He was a Yale linebacker in football, and so he actually wasn't able to finish his commission, but he was on that path. And then a civilian who was roommates with these guys, and they had this idea like, hey, why aren't there veterans here at Yale? Like, Yale's a great institution. They have this non-traditional program. Why are there so few? And so they had this idea, this goofy thing, which is just saying, well, what if, to your point, it's obvious, well, what if we just brought them here and showed them what it's like? We talked to our faculty members and said, hey, would you volunteer time to come teach them, just like you teach us? And then what if we showed the Yale administration what these veterans have to offer? That's a win across every level. And so they did it. And the thing worked, right? And so then that combination of people, and this actually ties really heavily into the narrative of not just WSP's success, but what we view as success in the transition space, again, is that was not just one person. That the fact that none of those were enlisted veterans, some people might say enlisted U.S. military veterans. Some people might say, well, then sort of there's that lack of authenticity. But you had an enlisted veteran, well, he's from another country, so what, right? You have somebody who's pursuing OCS, and then you have a civilian, right? So those three co-founders, actually, Nick Rugoff is now our vice chair for our board. He was the civilian who was involved. And you need that sort of connection, right? You need those people. Everybody has different networks. Everybody is beg, borrowing, and stealing initially for money for dorm rooms and for food and whatever, right? Traveling around bases and trying to get veterans to sign up for it. And the thing worked. And then in 2013, they said, well, what if we brought some other people into this space to come see what we're doing here to try and expand it? That's where I got involved. I had a friend that was one of the very few undergraduate students who was a veteran at Yale at the time. He knew I had gotten involved with veteran advocacy at University of Michigan at my undergrad after Michigan. And he said, hey, this thing is really cool. I wish it had existed when we got out. We would have done a better job in the transition. You should come check it out. I was blown away. And then they gave us license to launch a branch of it at University of Michigan. And then we did our own sort of early days of this thing of saying, okay, well, I'm going to go back to all my faculty members and say, all right, you taught me. Can I get you for a week, right? Can you come teach? And the thing just works. And so now we're doing this for about 300 veterans every summer. And then serving about 500 to 600 through other services that we've developed, which I'm happy to speak to as well. But it just works.
Brilliant.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's so crazy. And, you're talking about the people that got this started, and I think not only do they have their different networks, but they have these different perspectives. And I think a lot of times, we do find that education is really helpful when you do have folks that are civilians that are on the outside looking in. And sometimes that perspective can be so helpful because I've worked in the military space for a long time, and sometimes I get very stuck in the military space and I forget what it is. And I forget what it's like to be sort of on the outside looking in. And I think that perspective is, cannot be underscored enough. And I think that that's a great point. And I love that. So I do want to dig a little bit deeper into the boot camps themselves. So if we have watchers and listeners to the podcast today and they're interested and they're like, okay, Ryan, like, how do I do this? What would you tell them? Why are they successful? Like, how should they get
Yeah,
prepared? Anything like that. Maybe dig a
totally.
little deeper.
Yeah, I mean, so look, the challenge here is that I could take every aspect of that question and speak for an hour, right? So let me try and give like a concise part of it, right? So there is the Warrior Scholar Project of it all, specifically our eligibility requirements, what that looks like. And there's also the lessons that I think need to be amplified much more broadly within the veteran community, right? And I can talk a little bit around our initiatives and what's on the horizon for that, because we've got some really exciting stuff to take this thing that has this high impact, right, punching way above its weight for this relatively small group of people. How do we actually get this to have sort of systemic change, right? And work through some of the challenges of what we're seeing in the broader TAP program. So for Warrior Scholar Project, as I mentioned, it's enlisted focused, enlisted exclusive. So the two eligibility requirements are enlisted and does not yet have an undergraduate degree. If you meet those two eligibility requirements, we encourage you to go to warrior-scholar.org and fill out an interest form that connects you to a real live person. I got a great outreach and admissions team. We learned a few years ago that rather than just having somebody without really having a keen understanding of who we are, just fill out a full application and writing essays and those things, that gets you so far. But it's actually really limiting, because for a lot of people, they have this trepidation over higher education. They say, well, maybe I want to do this, but like this whole thing, not only is it, Warrior Scholar Project is not, again, an admissions mechanism into one of these institutions, though a lot of our folks do go on to matriculate at these institutions. But it is first and foremost a way to really get yourself inspired and prepared and to make informed choices. But we have a lot of people in the community that self-select out. Again, you think about 17-year-old Ryan gets rejected from college and says, well, all right, you know what? I'm enlisting in the Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Salas won't stop calling me, right? It's 2004 when he's calling me. I graduate high school in 2005. I'm 17 years old. Mom and dad, can you please sign the papers? Right? And so then I ship out, right? So you have a lot of people that go and do something in the military. I was an Arabic translator, which is its own interesting story, and set of stories along with deployments. You come out the other end and maybe you know that higher education is the thing that you should be doing, but maybe you don't, right? So 2/3 of enlisted veterans are first-generation college students. So they are non-traditional and they are first-gen college students. So they have two layers, two different things, two different sets of challenges layered on top of what happens at that transition space. One is you are non-traditional, right? You don't fall into the typical pathway for college admissions because you are you're a veteran, right? You have this other lived experience. That can be to your benefit for sure. But the other thing is, if you're first gen college, then you don't necessarily have that familial support that's pulling you along, right? That's saying, okay, well, of course you should be doing this. So I meet one of those criteria, but not the other. I come from a very well-educated family. My father was a physician. My mother has her master's in counseling, right? Like it was a foregone conclusion that I should go. So when I'm getting out, I'm thinking, yeah, I want to go. I had enough of an impetus to be able to put myself out there and to put those applications.
Right.
But most veterans, the vast majority, are self-selecting out of a excellent higher education experience because they think they don't have what it takes, which is nonsense, right? Again, I've been doing this work in some form or another in the veteran space for 15 years. I feel very well equipped to say that I have yet to meet a veteran that does not have what it takes to succeed in a rigorous academic undergraduate environment, provided that they've done the work to find the right fit, they're reaching out for the right support, right? And that they're surrounded by the right support. So back to Warrior Scholar Project, it's an interest form. Anybody who's interested, if you're enlisted, you don't yet have an undergraduate degree and you're interested in higher education, warrior-scholar.org. It's like a 90-second interest form. And then you speak to a member of my outreach and admissions team, right? Who then says, okay, what are you looking for? Right? What are you trying to do? Right? Okay, well then Warrior Scholar Project could be the catalyst for you to help make those informed choices for what comes next in your higher education trajectory, right? Rather than just going to the institutions that you've heard of, right, that market really aggressively to the veteran space, which can serve a purpose, right? Like there's absolutely a time and a place for that. But don't just do that because those are the only institutions that are reaching out to you that are saying that they want you. Let's
Right.
actually take that step back and go through this week-long academic boot camp, which is free for the veterans. We have to raise about $4.6 million every year to make sure that all of our programs are completely free for everybody in the space. And they are residential, right? You're sleeping in the residence halls, you're eating in the dining facilities, right? So like you are immersed, but that's part of where that transformation happens. It's this
Mm.
demystification of,
Yes.
this
So
is
important.
this is
Yeah.
what it's like. Oh, okay, now I can wrap my hands around it, right? I can see I read this passage on equality of conditions from Alexis de Tocqueville, and I asked a question or I participated in a discussion with a faculty member from one of these institutions. Like, my good, like I failed out of college, right? Like I was like, how did this happen, right? So that's the sort of connection that really actually happens. The other thing I'll say here, and this I know this is a long answer, but the thing that literally keeps me up at night is how do we then reach the people that don't even have the confidence to come to warrior-scholar.org, click that interest form, and come to one of our academic boot camps, right? We always have things to be able to grow, things to improve within our programs, right? But as I'm saying, the thing really works. About 90% of our folks go on to complete their undergraduate degrees. That contrast that to about 47% of overall enlisted veteran persistence rates through college. So only 47% of enlisted veterans who start a college degree will pursue it to completion. So for us, 90%, we're proud of that, right? We're very proud of that.
Wow.
That's incredible.
It is
But
incredible.
what about the people that we don't get a chance to be able to impact,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So I can talk more about this later, but this fall we're doing our first soft launch, and then it's going to go live in January of a course which is going to be on Coursera, and it's in partnership with Yale, and it is a on-demand version of the college success curriculum that we teach at our institutions. So I'm holding this thing up here. This is the Warrior Scholars Field Guide, which will hopefully actually be published next year. We've been using it for a couple of years I wrote this with our director of education. But these are just all the secrets, all the things from all the years of Warrior Scholar Project for how you make an informed choice. What's the difference between a for-profit and a nonprofit? How do I manage my attention and time as a college student? How do I fit in? How do I go from this tight-knit unit mentality to suddenly being a college student? How do I participate in a college discussion? How do I write an essay, right? So that's our answer to this is that's kind of scary, but within the next 4 or 5 months, we've got a lot of work to do on the editing phase here, but it's going to go live to reach more people.
Wow.
Brilliant.
Wow, that's amazing. And so neat. And I love what I've said this so many times on the podcast, but like I think the reason we started this podcast is to remind people that they're not alone. They're not going through things alone. And it seems like just in this niche that you're working in and you're trying to reach these folks and the impact that you're having and you're letting them know, right? You're building this community. You're letting them know again, they're not alone. And this is something that you're doing and you're working with them together. And I just think that's amazing. What great statistics.
Yeah.
I'm a statistics girl, so I really love data, and that's just amazing. So congratulations and thanks for sharing all of that.
Yeah, for sure. And if we could go one step further, I know we asked you about the academic boot camp, and you really kind of talked about that. But I understand that Warrior Scholar Project does provide even more than that. Do you want to kind of
Yeah,
unpack that a little bit and talk a little
sure.
bit about other support services y'all provide?
Sure. Yeah. So that on-demand one is going to be a big one in the future, right? That's been this big focus of our energy. That'll be free for people to go through, and we intend for that to be something which every veteran who's interested in higher education, right? If you've heard about WSP or otherwise, but like this is just the thing that is known in the veteran space. That if you're
Wow.
interested in higher education, that this is what you go through, right? Like we don't want to sit on these secrets on this data that we have, right? On all this success data from our folks. We want to be incredibly explicit with how we are and intentional with how we are bringing that to the world, right? So that's our audacious goal, right? Like, TAP serves a purpose, right? I've been, heavily involved with, I had my own TAP experience, right? I had all these things, but in terms of the actual process to make intentional choices about higher education, right? To fully maximize the post 9/11 GI Bill and VRNE and other benefits, it's just not there, right?
Mhm.
And we could have a whole conversation about that. Again, I've seen some improvements for it, but I'm actually of the mindset as well that it can't get all the way there, right? Based off the structure for how it is, right? If you're trying to have a broad spectrum solution for everybody, right? And so for us, that's why we wanted to have an offering which is free, which is accessible, which is on demand, which is rooted. And I should also say it's very dynamic instruction. It's modeled off of the most popular course on Coursera, which is a happiness course. So it's a mix of some talking head, but also live classroom discussion. And so that's the thing that we really want everybody to be aware of. That's the new offering. In addition to the academic boot camps, to your question, we offer college success workshops, which are 1-day workshops as well. So if you don't
Mm.
have the capacity, even though it's free, it's an ask of people's time to go and take a whole week, right, to go and do something. And so this is an area that we're going to continue to ramp up. This is often in partnership with community colleges, right? Many veterans have the confidence to start at the community college level, but then might not necessarily have the confidence to push forward beyond that. So we want to reach them. And again, that's not focused on humanities, STEM, or business, the disciplines in the boot camps. It's focused on the actual nuts and bolts of informed consumers of higher education, right? Like, what are the skills? What are the things that you need to be able to be thinking about? An
Yeah.
important point of this, and this is partly why we work with, Higher Heroes USA and Ross, and where we've really connected, is education also shouldn't be happening in a vacuum, right? So spend the time thinking
Mhm.
about where you want to end up, right? So what are the partners that we can connect you to? How do we help people at those earlier stages of transition? Even in a 1-day workshop, you can really help expand somebody's viewpoints and say, oh, okay, you know what? I've been saying I want to be an attorney, right? I'm a lawyer by training. And so it's like, well, do I know any attorneys who are doing the thing that I think I want to do? No. Well, maybe I should put some more research into that before I build my entire academic plan, right, and career
Yeah.
path based off of that. So those 1-day workshops really matter. And then the third category of services for us are the alumni services. So for some people, you go through your one week workshop, your one week boot camp, and you say, okay, I've got it, right? I'm set. But again, we've been doing this for a hot minute. We know that the services that people may require don't just all get met in 1 week, right? So you come out with this
Mhm.
confidence, right? Okay, I'm ready to take on the world. But then you actually have to apply to school, right? Then you actually have to be making sure that you're continuing to build community in school. A lot of our folks are already in school when they apply, but so they might be coming to us, but they're thinking about potentially graduate degrees, something like that. And so we offer a career pathways initiative to be able to help people make some of those career connections, and then also a graduate pathways initiative for folks that are interested in pursuing graduate school. When I was in law school, there were maybe 3 or 4 enlisted veterans in the entire law school cohort, right? A couple dozen
Wow.
commissioned officers. Again, it's great. I love the fact that there's that representation, but we need orders of magnitude more enlisted veterans who are thinking about graduate school as something that they should actually be really pursuing, no matter what the discipline is. So we want with our alumni core to be able to continue to support folks after the boot camp for as long as we can continue to help them.
That's
Excellent.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really love what you just said about, the orders of magnitude bigger. Because, the enlisted perspective is, I think, a lot of what is missing in some places that, we've interacted with, over our professional careers thus far. Um, I've seen it missing in, boardrooms. I've seen it missing in, the executive level of, places like, where I'm employed, for example. I've seen it missing in corporate America. In that perspective is so valuable. So, for those, enlisted members out there, for those enlisted veterans, never sell yourself short, because that's why I loved being an officer so much, is being able to empower and, see you all do incredible things that you never thought were possible. And Ryan and his team are certainly there to make the education side of that a reality for you all. So harness it. Again, we're going to have all these links in our show notes, so check them out, please. And if we can help with that order of magnitude that you just talked about, Ryan, we would love to be able to do our part for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. I mean, so much of the veteran community is word of mouth, and it's very reputation driven, right? You're only as good as your reputation.
Hmm.
Our data, is valuable, certainly for funders, for us to make sure that we're making improvements. We collect a lot of information in our post-course surveys and our alumni surveys to make sure we're hitting the mark, but also just the basic reputation. I'll give you an example of this. I have a non-anonymous account on Reddit where I'm on our veterans, I'm on our veteran benefits, and I'm talking to people about education. And yes, I'm talking about Warrior Scholar Project. Fortunately, we have a very strong reputation. It's actually a pretty big feeder for us. Reddit is a pretty big feeder into our programs. But I'm on there as well because I want to understand, I want my finger on the pulse of just like what are veterans saying to each other about higher
Mhm.
education, right? And
Mhm.
there's some good advice, but there's also some really, really bad advice. And one of the most common things that we see is a implicit, sometimes explicit, but often implicit mentality of, well, you have these benefits, so you'd be silly not to go to school. Like, well, maybe. Like maybe that's the case, right? But
Yeah.
if all that leads to you doing is then just going and applying and getting into some sort of degree path that you're not actually going to utilize and it's not intentional, the likelihood of that actually turning into successful career outcomes and transition outcomes really diminishes, right? And so this is one of the big issues. I think that we also talk about this all the time. I mentioned 90% of our folks go on to complete their degrees, right? We're incredibly proud of that statistic. If you're part of that 10%, and that's an intentional choice where we helped you as an organization figure out that college is not the right next step for you right now, fantastic, right? We consider
Yeah.
that a success as well,
Mhm.
right? It's the smaller subset of people that say, well, I'm not going because I don't have what it takes. No, 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 you do, right? That's the intervention model that we have to offer. But there
Yeah.
are really big systemic challenges that we have in this space where veterans are devaluing the opportunity cost of their time. Okay, these benefits, yeah, college is free for a lot of these cases, not in all cases for you, but you worked your tail off. You subjugated a portion of your liberty for years to be able to earn those benefits. So it's not free. And well, you're no spring chicken anymore. You're later in life. So your years here, right? Like just going and sort of like, well, I'm going to go get a degree because it's like, stop. No, stop.
Yes.
Make that intentional, right? Like
Mhm.
that piece of intentional decision making is not happening broadly in the space, right? And so that's where when I talk about the things that literally keep me up at night, when somebody comes through WSP, I know we got them, right? Like I have an incredible team. I should mention a huge part of our success relies on alumni who come back and serve as instructors and mentors for us. So that's part of the authenticity, right? These are folks that we call them our fellows. They're undergraduates. They go through WSP and they come back and work for us for a summer or two, and they're also sleeping in the residence halls. They're eating in the dining facilities. They're right there with them, and so you have these late
Yeah.
night conversations that is really about like, hey, what's it actually like, right, to be
Mhm.
at one of these institutions, right? And like, are you actually engaging with your fellow, like how are you doing with all that stuff? So we have this team, right? Like that happens. But it's everything else. It's that upstream stuff that is just like we're not societally hitting that mark. And that's what we're really hungry to figure out. How do we take these things and package it so that we can do a better job for every veteran that's out there?
Yeah.
I think you brought up a good point too. Like, not only do they get to the point where they've earned the benefit and they've, are now going to use the benefit they've gotten into school, but then they have to earn that degree, and that takes a lot of work as well. So I
Yes.
think like getting them fully prepared for all of that is such an important part of what you guys are doing. So, and we're like Ian said, we're so happy to be part of spreading the word about Warrior Scholar Project, and we will, yeah, share everything in our show notes so people can find out more and just reach out. I mean, if you're interested, reach out, find out more, and start the conversation. And don't feel like you're alone.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I think you really hit a key point about finding what's right for the individual, not necessarily what's right now for them. And I think all too often the message out of a lot of transition programs and conversations that folks have, it's all about what's right now.
Yeah.
And there is a part that's missed when it's not right versus right
Hmm.
now. So
Hmm.
yeah, well, excellent stuff. I mean, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on this. I know it. I can sense it. I can feel it. Um, but folks, reach out, talk to Ryan and his team, learn what you can, and ask us too, and we'll help spread that word too. So, I think at this point, though, in the interest of time, we don't want this to go on for hours and hours. Let's cut over real quick. And again, thank you for all that insight, Ryan. This is just phenomenal. I'm blown away about what you all do and your success rate and the intentional success rate of it. I can't foot stomp that enough. But I'm going to now ask you an incredibly important question. It's about what's in your rucksack. So
Mhm.
we like to ask, our guests, either a literal or a figurative kind of rucksack. Two things. what did you carry with you out of your military service into your current life and why? And what did you chuck? What did you get rid of, because you were glad to leave it behind? So what's in your rucksack, Ryan?
Yeah, well, look, I'm a fan of the literal. So my rucksack that I take everywhere is right here with me, right? This is my
Excellent.
this is my Topo Designs bag. My team will tell you that I am I'm basically just trying to get some sort of sponsorship from Topo because of how much of a fan I am of their stuff, but I travel a ton and I have learned I'm a big believer in attention and time management, and part of that is about like reducing the load when you have to travel, right? When you just got to
Mhm.
fly. So you know what? I've just got, I got my headphones. I've got this little thing has everything I would need for some sort of emergency. This is my tech pouch that has everything in there, right? There's another one for, another one for toiletries. You throw some clothes in there, that's you get real efficient. So I thought I would share with you a literal aspect of it. Um, Look,
I
Perfect.
I mean,
love that.
I took a lot from my military service. I was, as I think everybody does. I think that the military changed me. It changed me and I mean this very sincerely, and I'm very open about it. In many ways for the better, and in some ways I'm not so sure. I carry a deep cognitive dissonance about my military service. I think we don't talk about that enough in the military and the veteran community. And I consider it part of my own personal value add to the community to be really honest about that. I talk about this with respect to my deployments, where I came out of the military really hot, where I wanted nothing to do with the military by the time that I got out. And so I hold these things in balance where
Hmm.
I learned the value of service, I learned the value of working with a unit. I really internalized what it was like to be the person who was in the military when all my friends were going to college, right? They were, and that sort of thing, and that balance of what it looks like and what my life was like. It kicked me into high gear. It ripped me out of an apathetic, state that I was in for a long period of my life before that in high school. And I can't, it changed me in so many positive ways, right? It taught me that work ethic and that team mentality. And at the same time, it taught me the gravity of geopolitical decisions, right? And what it's
Mhm.
like to be a member of those things when you are not given much autonomy, right? To be able to actually decide how that filters down to your specific role, right? By the time that I'm deployed and I'm a corporal, I'm a sergeant, right? Like it's not, there's a little bit of discretion that's passed down to how you do those things, but you have a mission, right? And you have to
Hmm.
accomplish that mission. And then you reflect on the impact of that mission, and you have to then go and do the next thing, right? You have to keep on doing this over and over and
Mhm.
over. And that really shaped me as well. So my appreciation for the gaining perspective from people that are to my left and my right that are viewing those things differently, and being able to work together with a group of people, even when there is a dissonance, even when there is some sort of disagreement over something, but still to be able to make those intentional choices. Ian, you made that point around the fact that we need more enlisted veterans in all these various places of leadership. And part of the reason that I think we need that is because you have people that have had to make some really tough decisions, and people that have
Mhm.
been part of things that do shape them in a really important way, that have that greater appreciation for what the impact is on massive decisions. So those are some of the core things that really, 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 really stuck with me. Sort of the common things, teamwork, mission accomplishment, all of those things really matter. But the most important thing was just being thrown into situations time and time again with people on my left and my right that, came from different backgrounds, had different perspectives, and were accomplishing stuff together, and also being really honest on the impact that that has on us along the way.
Yeah, love it. That's perfect. Both literal, figurative, and philosophical, all on top of it. So you got the cherry on top of that one. Excellent answer. And thanks for your insights on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And it's a different way to answer that question. And I enjoy that because, sometimes we get in the habit of saying similar things. And so I really enjoyed that. So I'm going to transition us to the really fun part.
The really,
And
really
this
fun
the
part.
really really fun part. So this is fun too because our previous, and we've mentioned him so many times, but Ross Dickman was our last guest, and of course he introduced us to you, and so you get to actually try to guess from his three answers to his true truths and a lie, and you get to try to guess which is the lie here. So I'm
Okay,
going to read these to you. Okay.
please.
One, he got in so much trouble at West Point that the Army Chief of Staff, General Shinseki, knew about it.
Mm, that sounds
Number
true.
two,
Yeah.
he was the honor graduate at flight school. Number three, he got kicked off the golf course by Air Force personnel in Baghdad's green zone for improper attire.
Okay. Okay. See, look, I know Ross, right? And so I think Ross, part of the reason that Ross and I vibe together is because he's a real guy, right? Like he's not afraid to, so he's not going to bring in here something that's like an accolade of his. He's going to bring in things, the truths have to be the self-deprecating things. So the lie has got to be the honor grad side. He's an incredibly smart guy, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going on record. That's what I'm saying.
That was true, right?
That was
We
true.
actually didn't
Oh,
write this down on our paper,
oh,
but I do know that
oh,
it's number 3.
oh.
So
And you knew this
I knew this.
because of
Yeah, it was the golf course one.
experience.
He
Mm.
was not kicked off of a golf course in Baghdad's green zone due to improper attire. In fact, he was just asked to not play around on the golf course, if I recall.
Oh,
So
see,
yeah,
so that's a futz of a
Or they
trick.
gave
All
him a
right,
hard
Ross,
time.
come
they gave him a
on.
hard
Yeah,
time.
Yeah, but he's
yeah.
still able to play.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right. Well, I can believe he's the honor grad. He's a smart guy. All right,
he
fine. I
is. He
I
is.
guess. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, there you go. And now it's your turn. So you have
Mhm.
to give us your 3 items, and then on the next episode of the next tour, we will reveal which one was the lie. So over to you, Ryan.
Okay. All right. So these are all gonna be thematic. So I'm gonna take you into a place. Okay. So my first deployment, we were on TQ, had a small unit. We lived in a bunker right at the edge of TQ in 0809. So a small group of people doing, whatever SIGINT folks do out there. And we got a little goofy because it was just not that many of us, right? And so, we bonded in a very particular way. And so here's mine, right? So all of these 3 things is about my unit, my small unit in
Okay.
this bunker, okay?
Okay.
And they all revolve around the number 30. All right. So
Hmm.
first one, okay? First one is that we killed 30 mice through Operation Mickey Murder while we were in that bunker. 2 is we amassed 30 small Christmas trees that we procured through some, I would say, care packages that we were in excess on the base for
Okay.
Christmas because we were there for Christmas. And then the third is that our night shift crew drank 30 rippets over the course of one shift.
Wow. You know, all of those I can jive with because they all sound legit. But we're gonna again reveal and let our next guest get the opportunity to answer that and see if they get it right. So again, Ryan, thank you so very much for joining us. Warrior Scholar Project. Get out there, take a look, take a listen. Don't forget to follow us, like us. Everything else on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. And if you don't like to watch, you can always listen. Of course, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and Audible. And of course, hit up the website, thenexttourpodcast.com. And we'll see you next time on the next tour.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Ryan.
much for having me.
The views, opinions, and advice expressed by our guest on the next tour are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the podcast, Andia, or any affiliated organizations. While we strive to provide helpful and accurate information, this podcast is for informational purposes only. We encourage listeners to consult with professionals or conduct their own research before making any significant decisions related to military transition or post-service life. The content is intended as guidance and personal perspective, not as official advice.